Today's video, we're doing another look ahead into the future. We're going to say if the playoffs started today in the NHL 24-25 season, who would the matchups be and who would win? We'll make our predictions based on the current standings coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, today we're looking ahead and doing a prediction video for who might win this year's Stanley Cup, but it's all based on if the playoffs started today. Now, I'm recording this video on Wednesday. It is not going to hit YouTube until either Friday or Saturday, so the standings might be slightly different, but to make sure you remember, based on Wednesdays, before Wednesday games are played too. So after Tuesday night's games, the standings as of Wednesday in the afternoon. That's when I'm recording this video based on the standings, and I'm also going by points percentage because there's especially in the East, a major disparity between games played amongst the teams that are battling, especially for the final few spots. So I thought points percentage is the best indicator. So we will go by that. And to be honest, we have some pretty interesting matchups, and we're going to go through them here. So based on the standings right now, here is who would make the playoffs and how the matchups would stack up. In the Eastern Conference, you would have the top three in the Atlantic Division be the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Florida Panthers, and the Tampa Bay Lightning. The top three in the Metropolitan Division would be the Washington Capitals, Carolina Hurricanes, and the New Jersey Devils. Based on points percentage right now, the two wildcard teams would be the Ottawa Senators in wildcard 1 and the Columbus Blue Jackets as wildcard 2. Now, there's a bunch of teams on their heels right now. No guarantee this is the way it finishes, but like I said, this is just a prediction video for fun purposes to look ahead and say if things started today, how would it look and how would it go, and we'll give our predictions. So the matchups with those standings would give us the Washington Capitals being seed number 1 would play wildcard 2, which is the Columbus Blue Jackets. So there's no crossing over from teams going into the other division for playoff brackets. We'd have the Toronto Maple Leafs battling the Ottawa Senators, so the Battle of Ontario. We haven't seen that in the playoffs in, I think, about 20 years, so that would be fun. We haven't had that in a long time. We'd have the Battle of the State of Florida with the Florida Panthers and the Tampa Bay Lightning. Now, we have had a couple of series in recent years, which has been, for the most part, really good hockey and really good rivalry. So again, that's a really fun series. And then you have the Carolina Hurricanes battling the New Jersey Devils. So some very interesting matchups. Now let's jump over and take a look at the Western Conference, and then we'll go through and give my predictions. So as of today, like I said, on Wednesday, before Wednesday games are played, right now, the top three in the Central Division would be the Winnipeg Jets, followed by the Dallas Stars and the Minnesota Wild. The top three in the Pacific Division right now would be the Vegas Golden Knights, followed by the Edmonton Oilers and the Los Angeles Kings. So we would have our matchups being as follows. The Winnipeg Jets would be the top seed. They would play wildcard 2, which is currently the Calgary Flames. So they would have an all-Canadian Western battle there, Winnipeg versus Calgary. We'd have Vegas being the tops in the Pacific, play wildcard number 1, which is the Colorado Avalanche right now. So that's a rivalry and a battle that we've seen on a few occasions recently. Then the 2 versus 3 matchups would be the Dallas Stars against the Minnesota Wild and the Edmonton Oilers versus the Los Angeles Kings for the 4th consecutive year. That's getting a kind of a little bit less fun where we've had it so much here as of late. So now we have all the matchups. Let's get into predictions. So let's start in the Eastern Conference. The Washington Capitals will do battle with the Columbus Blue Jackets. And to be honest, right now, I think the Capitals would win that series. I think the Blue Jackets could make it interesting the way they've played. I honestly think if the NHL was giving out a Most Improved award, might be a guy like Kirill Marchenko. Marchenko has been phenomenal for the Jackets this year and has really improved his production. So a really great signing, great contract, and really a player that's really blossomed quite nicely there. But overall, the Washington Capitals are a lot better. They made some additions to their blue line with Jacob Chychrun leading that way, Matt Roy, bringing Dubois up front, who's actually been good for a change. Mangiapane added some depth. Ovechkin's been playing better. You know that they're going to want to try to win, of course, with this group. You get Logan Thompson playing really well between the pipes. Charlie Lindgren is having a decent year as well. So to me, Washington would definitely be able to win at least a round. Even though at the beginning of the year, before things started, I probably would have predicted they would have missed, to be honest. But obviously, they're better than we all expected. I'm not predicting them, which we'll find out here in a minute, to go too far, but I do think they would beat Columbus. The Battle of Ontario would be a lot of fun, Toronto versus Ottawa. To be honest, as much as the Leafs have been the stronger team in the last 7 years, the Ottawa Senators have still won more playoff series in the last decade, which is a little bit of a sad state of affairs for the Leafs. When the Sens last made the playoffs, the Leafs were in it that year as well, and the Sens went all the way to the conference final. The Leafs have only won one playoff series since then, even though they've qualified for the playoffs every year. So the Leafs are looking to, with the coaching change with Craig Berube, obviously a little bit of a different lineup, more focus on defense. Brought in Chris Tanev, goaltending tandem. There's lots to like about Toronto, but this Senators team has proven at this point in the year that they're one of the top 10 defensive teams in the league. They're getting great goaltending from Allmark when he's healthy. Muriel's filled in admirably, and they're getting pretty good scoring. There's lots to like. I could see an upset, to be honest, but for right now, as we stand here in January, I would pick Toronto to win. I think they're the deeper team, more playoff experience. If the Senators can stay healthy, and if they can get Allmark on a roll going into the playoffs, and if they do make additions by the deadline to beef up that lineup a little bit, make it a little bit deeper, I might have a different thought process towards the end of the season. But the way the playoffs are playing out right now, to be honest, I think there's a good path for the Leafs to go far. But the Battle of Ontario might not be the way they want to start. I can see there being an upset, but not the way things stand today. But it's something I'm going to be monitoring the rest of the year to see if it could happen, or if it's going to line up that they're going to play each other. The Battle of Florida, we get the Panthers and the Lightning. I probably would have picked the Panthers at the beginning of the year. Right now, I'd pick Tampa. To be honest, I think Tampa is going to be a very underrated team this year. They always go for it. They always beef up. The Panthers have played a ton of hockey the past couple of years, and I just have this feeling that towards the end of the season, going into the playoffs, we're going to see them lose a little bit of steam. Obviously, Vasilevsky, I think we can all say that on any given day could very well outbattle Bobrovsky, even though Bobrovsky's been the better goalie more recently. I have a feeling by the time we get to season's end that 2 versus 3 matchup is not going to be much of an upset either way. And I think Tampa would be able to beat the Panthers. I just have that feeling on how things are going to go. Vasilevsky, like I said, can certainly take over a series on his own. I think the Lightning are better on the blue line. The Panthers were depleted a little bit based on their cup-winning team last year. Be interesting to see how they beef up at the deadline. See, that's the big thing. We haven't hit the trade deadline yet, so a lot of these teams might look different in 5 or 6 weeks. And if I do this again in March, I might feel differently about how these teams are going to stack up. But today, I have a feeling Tampa wins that series. The Panthers run out of gas after 2 incredibly long years of going to the finals, and the Lightning win. The Carolina Hurricanes against New Jersey Devils. I'm picking New Jersey to win. I know Carolina, I've been high on them the past couple of years. They haven't followed through and made me look good. I think they're still kind of missing a big piece. They've been able to, I'm concerned about their goaltending long-term for starters. Their blue line is still pretty good, but I'm not sure it's been as good as years past. I think the Devils are just I think I just like their lineup a little bit more throughout, but I do think they have a solid tandem between the pipes. They have a good overall defense. They have some good offensive players, and I have a feeling that the Devils are going to break through a little bit this year, and the Hurricanes might have an early exit. So that would give us a second round matchup of the Capitals against the Devils and Toronto against Tampa. Now, to me, that's a favorable matchup for the Leafs. We've seen the Leafs take the Lightning out in the playoffs. It's their one series win here in recent years. I think they could do it again, to be completely honest. I think if the Panthers were to get knocked out early, like I said, I can see them running out of gas. That might be the break that the Leafs need to go deep. I think that they could probably beat a lot of the wild card teams that they may end up facing if they stay in the spot that they're in. And then if the Panthers aren't there in round 2, they are going to be a much better position to make it to at least the third round. But I would pick the Toronto Maple Leafs to beat the Lightning. I think they have their number. They can certainly play with them. And I think since the last time that they beat them in the playoffs, I think the Leafs are even better. They have better structure. They're better defensively. And they're certainly a little bit tougher to play against. But the big boys got to show up and score when it matters. That's been their big problem with Toronto. But I would bank on them coming through against Tampa. Washington against New Jersey. Again, the Capitals. I like them. They've been a nice story this year. But this is where I think they run out of gas, and the Devils take this series as well. I think the Devils are a little bit more built to have a deeper playoff run and to withstand the longer series and all the grind than the Capitals are. I don't know that, is Pierre-Luc Dubois going to be as good as he's been all season long? They have some players that are susceptible to injury. I don't know. I just have a feeling we're going to see a Toronto Maple Leaf based on this path and based on this setup. Leafs versus Devils. Sheldon Keefe against his old team in the Eastern Conference Final. I think that's the way things may stack up based on this lineup. Like I said, I may feel differently in a couple of weeks or 6 weeks as the deadline comes and goes and these teams make their additions and make some changes. You could have hot streaks, cold streaks, which could make us all feel a little differently about a lot of these teams. But if I'm right about the Panthers to me, the Panthers would be the team to take the Leafs out. If they're not there when they go to move on to the next round, if they get bounced early, that's going to be a major break. Toronto winning the division is going to be important this year. If they get locked in that 2-3 spot with the Panthers, that's where I'm going to smell trouble. Because I think depending on the opponent, the Panthers could win at least. I mean, it's hard to bet against them being the Stanley Cup champions and the 2-time finalists. This is not that they're playing poorly. It's not that I'm disliking on them. I honestly think that they're a little bit depleted compared to because of the cap. They're not as strong, and they've played so much hockey the last 2 years. At what point are they going to run out of gas? That's where my head is at. But Toronto, New Jersey, I would pick the Leafs to win that series. I think Craig Berube would outcoach Sheldon Keefe. And I think that the offensive players in Toronto, if they get a taste of things and they get into round 3, then they might as well be as good to go to the final. I think it would be the path that the Leafs need to finally break through. And I could see the Leafs winning the East. We'd have a lot of good stories. This would be a very entertaining playoff round. Like I said, you get the Battle of Florida, the Battle of Ontario. You'd end up with, Keefe versus the Leafs, which I think is a good storyline. It provides a lot of intrigue, and I think that's how things could play out. In the Western Conference, we have the Jets versus the Flames in a battle of Western Canadian clubs. I know that the Jets bombed early, and they were one of the top regular season teams last year. I don't think that's going to happen this year. I think they're going to have a different mindset. I think they're going to have a different outcome here. Winnipeg is not going to let that happen 2 years in a row. And if they end up staying in first place and they end up with a team like the Flames, then I think they're going to win. Now, they ended up getting in a matchup with the Avalanche last year, which was not favorable. It didn't matter. Regardless of how your regular season goes, you still need a favorable matchup. And the Calgary Flames, to me, would be a team that the Jets could absolutely handle, I think, with relative ease. So I would pick Winnipeg to win that series. Vegas versus Colorado. Right now, Vegas is a bit of a wagon. Colorado is a little sketchy. We don't know a lot about Landeskog. We're still wondering about, Nichushkin's battling another longer-term injury. Blackwood's been good since he's come over. But Vegas has been pretty solid, and they haven't even been the healthiest, and they're still winning lots of games. I think Vegas would beat Colorado. And I think the big question around Colorado is what's going to happen with Mikko Rantanen. Is he going to re-sign or not? And this is going to maybe play a role in that. But I would think Vegas would take out Colorado. Dallas versus Minnesota. I think the Dallas Stars are too deep right now, and they're bound to add. We know they're going to add. We don't know who and exactly what they're going to do. But I think the Stars would beat the Wild. The Wild have been a good story this year. I mean, the Dallas Stars are the old Minnesota North Stars. So to me, those two battling in the playoffs is a bit of a history storyline as well. But I would pick Dallas to win that one for sure. Edmonton against LA. We know the Oilers have beaten them 3 straight years. The Oilers power play usually dominates the Kings. I have no reason to think that the Kings would be any different this year. I think the Oilers take that series as well. So that sets up a round 2 in the West of the Jets against Vegas and the Stars against the Oilers. Now the Oilers, to me, I don't know that the Oilers lose against Dallas. They've proven last year that they can beat most of these Western teams. So I would take the high-powered offense in Edmonton to take down the Dallas Stars right now. The Dallas Stars are a very deep team, but the thing is, we know the Stars are going to add. They're going to have lots of LTIR flexibility. The Oilers may have that with Evander Kane's contract as well. The Stars might have even more, but we don't know what those moves are going to be yet. So for right now, I would pick Dallas to lose against Edmonton, but depending on what those upgrades are later in the year and what the health status is of everybody, maybe I have a different opinion later. But right now, I'm taking Edmonton. Vegas versus Winnipeg, I'm going to take the Jets. I honestly, I believed in them last year. I believe in them again. I know they're so good in the regular season. I think Hellebuyck is finally going to deliver in the playoffs. You're going to see these Jets players come through with flying colors here as well. The Vegas Golden Knights are a team that's got a lot of players that are, have dealt with a lot of injuries. I do wonder about their long-term health and ability to go deep in the playoffs right now. And that would set up an all-Canadian final, Winnipeg versus Edmonton. And again, I've been on Edmonton's train since last year. Edmonton came within a 1 game, 1 goal of getting it done, or 2 goals technically, 1 to tie, of taking the Stanley Cup last year. But you'd have 3 out of 4 teams be Canadian at this rate. With the path, the way things are lining up, the odds of the Cup coming to Canada this year, I think would be really, really high. I would pick the Oilers to beat the Jets. Again, as good as Connor Hellebuyck and the Jets are, I don't know that they can stop the two-headed monster of Draisaitl and McDavid. And then we would have Toronto versus Edmonton in the final. Can you imagine that? That would be super good ratings. Matthews versus McDavid, the 2 guys that have done the McDonald's commercials together. They're going to go head-to-head as well at the Four Nation Face-Off. To me, it would just be a terrific story. It'd be great for Canadian hockey for sure. Canadians are so dedicated and certainly give amazing ratings, across the NHL. So to me, this would be a great Stanley Cup final. And I'm not just picking it because I like the story. I just think that based on today's standings, the way everything is lining up, that there's a path for this to happen. And I really think that it's reasonable that it could. So those are my predictions. The Edmonton Oilers, Toronto Maple Leafs. I would pick Edmonton. I've been sticking with the Oilers for 2 years to win this cup. I think they're going to do it this year. But it would be a great building block for the Leafs to be able to, even though they don't win, the first time they really have serious playoff success to go that far. I think it could be a really good playoff run. We know Craig Berube is going to have them playing a little differently. I think, and there's no doubt he's having a positive effect on them so far. Plus the roster changes that they made. I think they're poised to break through this year as it stands. But like I said, I could feel very different. Like I know it's weird to say that I could pick a team to go to the final today, and by the deadline, I might be like, you know what? They're poised for an upset. There's certainly some concerns for the Leafs right now. Don't get me wrong, but I think there's time and effort and options for them to overcome that. But like I said, I could feel completely differently in another 4, 5, 6 weeks. So we'll see what happens. Let me know your thoughts on all of today's predictions down in the comments, and we'll discuss further. Let me know what your predictions are, of course, so we can discuss as a community. Feel free to critique mine. I won't take it personal. Just be respectful is all I ask. We can have civil, respectful conversations in the comments about who do you think is going to win. This is just for fun. Nobody's guaranteed to be right or wrong. Nobody's crazy. This is just the way things go. So let me know, and we'll talk further. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.